Jesse from Happy Gaming House here, and by the time you're seeing this video, gaming's Night of Nights, the Game Awards, is only about a week away. And I didn't realize how much of a big deal this awards night really was. Over 103 million viewers across the globe on all streaming platforms last year, and this year they're teaming up to integrate their systems into China, so you can actually vote on Bilibili, right here on Bilibili or WeChat, and those votes are actually weighted to the winners. So 10% of the voting total is from fan contributions, and 90% is of a panel of about 100. So what they do is, and what I really like about this award show, because in general I don't really care about award shows, think of the Oscars, the Emmys, they're too American centric. And what I like about video games is it's very international. And they've made a great effort to include different media outlets from all over the world, including China. They've got G-Cores, they've got Gamersky, a bunch of other publishers, and you actually even have Stephen Ma, the senior vice president of Tencent Games, who is on the advisory board for this awards night. So I have a lot of faith that this is actually a truly international awards night. They've been going for, 9 years at least, and it's been growing year on year. And to this point, there's a lot of buzz and excitement for this year's Game Awards. In the past, they've had huge announcements, like Hideo Kojima announced Death Stranding 2. We had the first gameplay of Breath of the Wild also announced at the Game Awards. So there's a little bit of speculation, and we won't know by the time this video comes out, but we will know soon that they're gonna drop maybe some GTA 6 or something earth-shattering. So I'm really excited for those. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run through some of the nominations I thought was interesting, some of the omissions and stuff like that. So first of all, this has been a monster year for games. This is gonna go down. A lot of people have been writing about this. This might be one of the biggest, if not the biggest game year there has ever been. 2023 is full of top titles. You look at Douban, or you look at Metacritic, and you sort of the scores, it's amazing. And among this crop of games, there's a few games here that I want to shout out that maybe didn't get as much attention, and I think they should have. This year, there's games even like Armored Core 6, Starfield, Tears of the Kingdom, Diablo 4. Some of these games got a few nominations, but not much. And then there's a few games that came in, I think, a bit too late, and it will be interesting to see if they get nominations next year. Talos Principle 2, I'm very sad that Talos Principle 2 got no nominations, and the indie game Slay the Princess, which I also thought was fantastic, and I do wonder if they're going to get some love next year, because they're fantastic, but maybe people haven't had enough time to play with them. So the thing about awards and games, and I'm going to get into it very soon, is it's actually really difficult to do awards for games, because unlike movies, it's not this fixed thing. Games get updated, games cover a lot of genres, so there's actually a separate esports category for this. And I'm just wondering, like, okay, can a sports game win Game of the Year? Like, it's really hard to think about, or are indie games going to be in the big categories? So it's really hard to design gaming awards, because games change, and they actually say that any game that was released before November 17th, even if it's a 50-year-old game, if enough people nominate it, then that game is eligible. So that's very different from other awards. So I'm gonna look through some of the categories. I'm gonna point out some of the interesting things. Of course, we have Game of the Year. That one, I'm gonna actually read out all of the nominees, because that is the big one. So Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So the thing here is to note, all of these are established franchises. There's not an original sort of new IP. Alan Wake's on there too. So I think in gaming, as compared to movies or something, there's not this immediate reaction, oh, it's an established franchise, it's not going to be creative, because games are about mechanics as well as story, and mechanics can evolve over game to game with new technology. It's much more tied to technology. So I think I am interested to think about really artistic sort of indie stuff, and whether they have a completely new thing or these really big budget games here. For me, I think this is a pretty good list. I've played most of the games here, haven't sunk a significant amount of time, but my money is on Alan Wake 2. One thing I wanted to note about Baldur's Gate 3 is that studio spent 6 years working on the game, and in fact, it was 2020 when their early access came out. They had 25 hours of the game ready and done on early access, and it wasn't here until 2023 the full game comes out, and now you're getting the chance for that work to pay off. So you see that games are different from movies, different from other things, because they're a work in progress. So even if you're in early access 3 years ago, now it can all come into fruition. Some other things I want to point out here that I found very interesting is best adaptation. See, we all know as fans of video games that some of the adaptations of video game works can be a little bit, you know, not the best. But we actually had a good year. Sure, there's some stuff on here like Gran Turismo, Mad, Twisted Metal, Super Mario Bros. Movie. They're entertaining, not that great, but there's actually 2 kind of fantastic things on this list, which is surprising to me. You have obviously the Last of Us adaptation TV series, which pretty much I think ushers in a new era. We can actually expect to get good quality video game adaptations for the first time. And one other one that we shouldn't forget because it's animated is the Castlevania Nocturne. So Castlevania series was a Netflix series. It's not actually made in Japan. There's some staff from Japanese games and anime, but it's actually an American production, Netflix. That ran for 4 seasons. It's by Warren Ellis, one of my favorite creators of comics. He did Transmetropolitan. I have all those comics. Fantastic writer who created and adapted. So you have this Japanese series, which is based on Dracula, which is a British thing, which is then developed by an American studio and made this fantastic anime series for Netflix. And then you have the Nocturnes one. Fantastic series, great adaptation, and really surprising. And seeing that it is this collaboration, and gaming is a global thing, and you have this collaboration from all over the world. Fantastic. One I thought was kind of strange for best narrative was Final Fantasy 16. There's been a lot of controversy about Final Fantasy 16, where it fits in with the other Final Fantasy games, and I'm just not feeling it. I'm just feeling that entry was a little generic, and I'm surprised that it's up for best narrative when you have so many interesting story-based games. I feel like they're leaning a bit too much to the blockbuster games, because I really don't think that Final Fantasy 16 should be on the table for best narrative. Really excited for art direction. Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is like a music game. It sort of came out of nowhere. It's just this great rhythm game, and everyone was just surprised, like, wow, this game is fantastic, and it's getting a lot of nominations, makes me very happy. Best audio design, that they have Dead Space on there, because that game, you're like alone in space. Horror games, it's all about sound. So I really like when great horror games get nods for their sound design, because it's all about the creepy space station stuff, and that's a remake. And the other thing which is interesting about gaming awards is, what about remakes of games? Is that an old game? Do we give it a new award? Because Resident Evil 4 is up for Game of the Year, and that's like the 2nd, 3rd remake of that one game. I mean, it's totally different as well, but still eligible. As I said, anything's eligible. If people think it's good and it's doing something good, then it can go there, and I like that. You've got Advance Wars as well. That's a very old game, the remaster of that. And Dead Space, again, a remake of a classic. It's really interesting that those got in there. Looking into performances, you've got some big name actual actors. Idris Elba in Cyberpunk. So now this is the crossover with Hollywood, and I personally love her name is Malene Lieberg. She worked in a lot of movies and stuff, but she's the principal detective in Alan Wake 2. I think she did a fine performance. Really great that she's getting a lot of attention. And you just see over time, you have talent that work on animated things, voice actors, video games, movies. It's the same people. They sort of go in everywhere. As production values get bigger, it's nice to see that video games aren't second class. I think in a lot of the early awards thing, it was like, look at us, we need to have an awards night because no one takes video games seriously as an art form. The early awards nights were kind of like, haha, games, you know, you play games, you're a loser, like this sort of thing. And now everyone takes it seriously, and it's really fun. We don't need to prove ourselves. So that's a great thing about having these game awards. We can just celebrate good games. One thing I thought was really awesome, I've been playing a lot of Street Fighter 6, and there's this thing called the Accessibility Award. So that's like making games more accessible for different kinds of people. Now what Street Fighter has done, and Mortal Kombat 1's on this as well, what Street Fighter has done is they've basically made all the sound stuff fully customizable. So if you're sight impaired, and you can, this is amazing, because if you think about it, in Japan you've got Zatoichi, the blind swordsman. This story of like this cool, badass kung fu guy or like samurai guy that can do martial arts and beat people up without eyes. And so Street Fighter 6 is up for the award because they've customized all the sounds. So even if you can barely see, you can judge the distance, the type of blocks and counters and moves. You can all do it through sound. So I can imagine there are people out there that can wipe the floor with me in Street Fighter 6, and all they need to do is use sound. That is amazing. I think that's very innovative, really interesting to think about. I almost want to play Street Fighter 6 like that just to try it out. There's some good indie games coming out here. The Games for Impact, that's games that make a difference. I want to shout out A Space for the Unbound. That's an Indonesian game. It reminds me a lot of a Chinese game called A Perfect Day. And I'm kind of sad that didn't get the nod, but this gives me the same vibes, the same feeling. Space for the Unbound, it's like high school growing up in Indonesia, really good story-based game. Chance of Sinar, great game where it's like a Tower of Babel thing and you're trying to decode different languages. Fantastic game, love that, got a nod. Of course, MiHoYo, the Chinese developer here, did great work getting a few nominations. Genshin Impact's up for nominations, of course. That's why we've got the best ongoing games. So Genshin Impact's a few years old, but the fact that it's a continuous game, it gets updated. So that's recognized here. I love seeing Genshin Impact. One of their mobile games also got a nod, so that's fantastic. One particular designer I think deserves a complete shout out is Jeppe Carlsen. He created Limbo and Inside, two of it. If you want to play like games that are like cinematic experiences, but like an auteur, like you know, you have your favorite directors. I love Quentin Tarantino. Jeppe Carlsen is like this original guy. He did Limbo Inside, and now he's got this game called Cocoon. Fantastic. Just his vision, beautiful design puzzles. Doesn't play like a movie, it's just a game. It's all gameplay, pure joy. Love him, love his stuff that he got a nod here. Very interested to see. Mobile games, interesting. You've got MiHoYo up again with their Honkai Star Rail, which is kind of another gacha game like Genshin Impact. It's their first turn-based game though. I want to play it a bit more. It's up here for best mobile game, and I think Genshin Impact changed our expectations of how good mobile games can be. Huge success, so I'm really excited to check that out. One thing that I thought was a bit strange is, of course, you have to cover VR esports too. Best VR, you have Humanity. Humanity is a puzzle game. I love that. I'm kind of sad Humanity is only nominated as a VR game because the VR is totally, I mean, it's good, but you don't need the VR. Gran Turismo 7 deserves the VR award as well. Fantastic. We played that at Happy Gaming House. Few things before I wrap up. Best fighting game, it's good to see. It's a big year for fighters. Fighters are back in a big way. Fighting games have never been more popular than since the 90s. You've got the new Tekken coming out, you've got Mortal Kombat 1, new King of Fighters, you've got Street Fighter 6. They even put in some nice indie games here. Pocket Bravery, it's a beautiful 2D fighting game, really amazing. Really kind of a 90s style, SNK style. So if you're looking for that kind of SNK 90s fighting style vibe, check out Pocket Bravery. You might have missed it. With all the big fighting games come out, don't forget the little guys that deserve a nomination. Also, they had God of Rock, which is like a music game plus fighting game. I mean, for a lot of people that didn't really work. It kind of got mixed reviews. So I'm glad it still got a nomination because I don't think it should all just be safe bets. I'm glad some more innovative things that are make more dangerous choices, people that are actually going out there and trying to do something a little bit more risky. So I love that God of Rock got in there, a bit of a risky move for them to try that gameplay thing, and they're getting a bit of love from the community there, so I love that. Another thing that I think is great, Party Animals from Recreate Games. So Party Animals, we saw a lot of that when we went to a lot of the gaming festivals this year in China, and it's actually from studio Source, owned by Source Technology. The studio is Recreate Games out of Shanghai. So shout out to Shanghai, shout out to Source Studio and Recreate Games for Party Animals. It's up for 2 nods, Best Multiplayer and Best Family Game. That is fantastic. I think that's well deserved. Party Animals is a hell of a lot of fun. So in between the MiHoYo games and the Party Animals, you have some nice China representation on the nomination list. And last thing I'm going to get into is upcoming games. What are the most anticipated games? Because I have opinions on this too. So we have the Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, Hades 2, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Star Wars Outlaws, and Tekken 8. Pre-ordered. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, that's the Yakuza games, previously known as Yakuza Oolong, or whatever it is in Chinese. They're going to Hawaii. It's just like, it's the vacation episode. It looks so amazing, it looks so joyful. I know we're gonna get a lot of cool trailers, reveals. I don't have too much to speculate that. I said GTA 6. Hideo Kojima might give us, he's on the board, so he might give us some more Death Stranding stuff. Maybe I would love some Silent Hill stuff from Konami. I'm really excited about that, but there's going to be plenty of surprises. So all in all, Game Awards is coming up in a week. It's pretty exciting. I was never a big fan, but as the momentum builds, as we get over 100 million, maybe get 150 million this year, as it's starting to support platforms in China, it's streaming all over the world. You have so many people involved from all over the world. You have these great trailers to look forward to. The nominees are actually pretty interesting. It's been the best year for gaming almost ever. So we should celebrate that. We should celebrate that we had one of the best gaming years that has ever existed. The best, I'm gonna call it. 2023 was the best year, is the best year in gaming ever, period. And we should all sit back, watch these awards and go, wow, look at all the games. And then we're gonna turn off the TV or keep the TV on and try to finish all the hundreds of hours we still haven't played. Oh, so anyway, that's the Game Awards coming up. And I was Jesse, and that was Happy Gaming House.